So on paper, your life looks great. Maybe you have a steady job, an apartment, savings, maybe even a relationship. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you've got this nagging feeling that won't go away, a sense that you're capable of more, that this isn't quite the life you choose if you were being honest with yourself. This is called the comfort trap, and it's the silent epidemic hitting guys today that turns into massive regret if left unaddressed. My name's Eddie, and I managed to break out of this trap, move to Brazil, and build the life I actually wanted. And now my mission is helping guys do their own version of the same thing. And in this video, I'm gonna go over 5 signs you might be stuck in this comfort trap, some of which will probably surprise you. So ironically, the comfort trap is actually the reward society gives you for doing everything right. Get a stable job, nice apartment, work hard in the week, enjoy your weekends, and repeat. Nobody tells you that this is a problem, and from the outside it looks like a completely fine life, but there's this subtle but nagging feeling in the back of your mind that something is missing, that you could be doing more. It's kind of like a week at an all-inclusive resort. Everything's taken care of and it feels pleasant, but by day 5 you're strangely restless, and it's because although it feels comfortable, there's this feeling that your trip could be a lot more exciting and that you're playing it too safe. So let's get into sign number 1. Time is flying by. So ask yourself a question. Did the last year actually feel like a year? And a lot of guys are surprised by their answer. Maybe the last 12 months felt like 6, or time just blurred into one long stretch that you can barely separate. And most of them think it's the same thing, that as you get older, time speeds up, and that's just life. And there's definitely a slither of truth to this. 1 year at 40 is a smaller fraction of your life than 1 year at 20 was. So it will feel shorter by comparison. But the part that no one realizes is this: your brain doesn't actually track time by counting days, but through memory markers, moments that stood out enough to actually remember. So on one hand, picture a guy who wakes up, runs the same routine as the day before, comes home, repeats it again the day after. Because his days are so similar, his brain doesn't file anything memorable, so the year just feels like a handful of weeks stitched together, and the months feel like a blur. Now compare this to a guy living through those same days, but traveling when he can, meeting new people, learning new things that are challenging, and regularly getting out of his comfort zone. His year ends up full of memory markers, and the time feel like it passed way more slowly than the first guy. So if the last few months or years feel like they've vanished, this should be a big wake-up call. It's probably your brain telling you that most of the things that you've been doing just haven't been worth remembering, and that you desperately need to make your life more interesting. So this next one is uncomfortable because there's a decent chance that you've already done it multiple times today, consuming technology mindlessly. And here's how it plays out for most guys. Whenever there's a gap in your day, you grab your phone, and before you know it, you've wasted minutes or even hours without even knowing how. Or you finish work with good intentions to work on a hobby or goals, but then find yourself spending hours a night scrolling or watching TV. So why does this keep on happening? Think of your attention like rainwater. It doesn't decide where to go. It just goes into the deepest channels that are already carved into the ground. So if scrolling's the channel you've carved the deepest, that's where your attention's going to flow by default. And the channels for better things like working towards your goals, building skill sets, are shallower. So you have to make a conscious effort to deepen these channels. Otherwise, your brain's always going to pick the path of least resistance. And on top of this, the harsh truth is that it isn't even about the screen, but it's usually about escaping discomfort, boredom, or a fear of sitting in silence. And this is why advice like deleting apps is useless by itself, because if you take one channel away without forging a new one, your attention just ends up finding the next easiest one. Instagram turns into YouTube, YouTube turns into watching sports, and so on. If you don't address the root, you stay stuck in this loop and a slave to the comfort trap. And if this is resonating, please subscribe for similar content, and check out this quiz I've created in the description to help you figure out exactly where your time and energy is leaking so you can take back control. So moving on to number 3, and it starts with another question. Out of 7 days a week, how many do you actually enjoy? And if the answer is 2.5, Friday night, Saturday and Sunday, and the other 5 are just something you get through, this feels pretty normal to most guys. Monday to Friday is the grind, and the weekend is the payoff. That's what society tells us is normal. But think about what that actually means for a second. You're spending 5/7 of your existence in a state you describe as tolerable, banking on 2 days and a handful of holidays a year to make up for it. It's a pretty brutal trade-off when you actually think about it. And during those 5 days you're working, you're paying the bills, nothing's technically wrong, but the week just feels so tedious and repetitive, going through the motions without a clear sense that you're moving forward. So what should it actually look like? And this is the part that surprises most guys I work with. The goal should actually be to make your week just as enjoyable as your weekends, one that you actually look forward to when Sunday night comes along. And this is in a different way to the weekends. You're not going to be out partying or relaxing all day, but what you do is create habits that help you make constant progress towards your goals. And this becomes highly rewarding and enjoyable. And the bar for this is way lower than you think. It's just making small and steady progress towards your goals without putting too much pressure on the outcome. Maybe a hobby you're getting slightly better at every day, 20 minutes an evening working towards a specific goal, learning a skill set. This sense of moving forward is what changes how rewarding your week feels. And this is exactly what the comfort trap steals. It steals your weeks, swapping 5 days of progress for 5 days of tolerating and waiting. The week becomes something you enjoy, and the wider the gap grows between the life you have and the one you actually want. And you end up turning to this next thing numb before in order to cope with this. So sign 4, numbing behaviors. And this one shows up in multiple ways, but it's almost always the same thing underneath. So things like drinking, smoking weed, vaping, gaming, comfort eating. None of these get questions because they all come with a reasonable excuse. I've worked hard all week, so I deserve to switch off and relax. And on top of this, society normalizes all of this, so men don't look twice. But here's what's actually happening underneath. The behaviors aren't really about the thing itself, but are about escape. Specifically, escaping a life that isn't exciting or stimulating enough on its own. And this is the harsh truth. When your life feels dull and repetitive, you look for any way to numb these feelings that give you a quick hit through cheap dopamine. And for a short window, it works. But then the feeling comes back and the loop runs again and again, each time more automatically, whilst the root of these feelings are never actually addressed. So if you notice any of these behaviors running in yourself, there's a good chance you're stuck in this loop, seeking short-term pleasure and comfort. And the key here, which I'll go into more detail in another video, is learning to embrace discomfort and, more importantly, facing discomfort on a regular basis so it just becomes a habit and not something you run away from. So moving on to the last one, and this is the one that is definitely the most uncomfortable to admit: comparison towards others and even envy. And this is human nature. If you see someone living their ideal life, it's normal to feel jealous and start questioning your own life. This is nothing to be ashamed about. But the problem arises here depending on how you use this. On one hand, the negative way, you can let this turn into resentment. Tell yourself how the guy got lucky. You compare obsessively, have a victim mindset, or even beat yourself up for feeling jealous in the first place. On the other hand, you can use this in a positive way to take action and level up your own life. You acknowledge this envy and use it as motivation to spring into action and stop avoiding things. And I've noticed in the guys that I work with that this is strongly connected to the comfort trap. When you're avoiding the risk it takes to build the life you actually want, whether that's through fear or any other excuse, it's pretty natural to start comparing yourself to others. Whereas the guys who are actually taking action are too busy to even notice it and know that if they're consistent, they'll get to where they want to be. It's as simple as that. So those are the 5 signs, and if any of them landed, the question now is, how do you actually get out of this? And the easiest way to do this is to sit down and create a clear vision of actually what you want in different areas of your life: finance, dating, skill sets, travel, and so on. And if you want help doing this, book a call in the link in the description and we'll get this done. And a great way to start breaking out of this comfort trap is to take control of your evenings, which is where the comfort trap often has its strongest grip. Watch this video next to learn how to do this.